If you or someone you know is struggling with alcoholism or addiction, do not hesitate to reach out for help. You can find numerous free resources on our website, thebeginagainpodcast.com, and there are tons of resources and support networks available online, in person, or just a phone call away. You don't have to face this challenge alone. Welcome to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes. On the Begin Again podcast, we delve into the inspiring journeys of individuals who have overcome alcoholism and addiction and emerged as true trailblazers in entrepreneurship, business, sports, and beyond. Through authentic, uplifting, and profound conversations with our guests, we aim to shatter the stigma surrounding addiction and demonstrate that recovery can be a catalyst for remarkable success, strength, and resilience. We firmly believe that by listening to these accounts, you will be empowered to unlock your own potential, instigate positive change in your life, and contribute to the creation of a better world. So, get ready to be inspired and embark on your own personal journey of growth with the Begin Again podcast. Welcome back to the Begin Again podcast. Gary here. Joining us today is someone I admire very much. I was just telling him as much. He's the co-host of the Don't Hide the Scars podcast with my good friend Jason LaChance. He is the president and founder of PAIN, which is Parents and Addicts in Need, in Fresno, California. And he just told me offline he's going to be expanding that into Los Angeles, which we can't wait to hear all about. The man is a leading expert in the opioid and fentanyl crisis and a driving force and voice in the fight against substance abuse. Flindt Andersen. Flindt, thanks so much for being here, man. Welcome to the show.
Gary, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure. I mean that. I truly do mean that. Thanks.
You know, we were just saying offline the amazing people we get to meet, or I get to meet in this Recover Out Loud community. I was honored to be on the Scars podcast, where our paths crossed for the first time, and won't be the last time, and this won't be the last time. But I'm so happy. I mean, listen, you live it. You know, this is what you do. This is your purpose. This is your life's purpose. But we got here somehow, right? So yes. I'd love to hear a little bit about Flindt back in the day.
Sure. Well, we could be here for the next 16 hours, but I won't go down that road. Yeah, I got clean and sober in 2001. Mm-hmm. After four different attempts at treatment centers, wound up. Look, I was the opiate king. That was my drug of choice. Mm-hmm. Although over the years, I call it my Pablo Escobar days, where I was doing more cocaine. I could kill herds of elephants with it, and again, there was nothing out there that I didn't dabble in at some point. Sure. But opiates were my thing, and it stems from a lot of surgeries I had from the day I was born all the way through my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so again, I always returned to the opioid. And so when from about 1999 to 2001, that was those years in there. I can honestly say this, I remember very little. Mm-hmm. about from 99 to 2001. I was pretty much a train wreck. I wound up having a heart attack in 2000, and they wound up doing open heart surgery on me the following day. And the way my mind thought it was, oh, great, now I found another doctor who's going to give me more painkillers, right? Because I was taking 70 a day, at some point. And so took me another year. Friend of mine, one of my best friends, if not the best friend, said, look, he said, nobody wants you. He goes, your wife doesn't want you. He said, I don't even know if I want you anymore. You got one last shot at this. You're coming home with me, and I'm going to get you somewhere. Wow. And within 4 days, I was at the Betty Ford Center in Southern California. And that kind of started the path. When I walked in, they said I had about 6 months to live. I was 45 years old. I couldn't sign my name to a piece of paper. I was losing teeth. I was 140 pounds and a train wreck, So like I tell people, those first 4 years of recovery are tough. Okay. Mm. They're hard. No matter if you've got 1 year of using or 23 years like I had. Mm-hmm. It's about changing everything and trying to change everything one day at a time. And it was difficult. And Gary, I got to tell you, I didn't want this on my resume. I had no desire to get into the drug treatment business. None of it. I had another business that at the time that was doing well. I had other people working it. And then lo and behold, in 2008, somebody asked me to come and tell my story. The phone started ringing. People started saying, can you help my son? Can you help my daughter? And I said, God, I don't know. Let's give it a shot.
Wow.
And we started this nonprofit in 2009, and lo and behold, here we are today. And I know that's the short version, but in essence, that's how it got started. Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. I knew some of your story, right? But I didn't realize the heart attack at 44, 45 years old. I had a heart attack myself, and I had a widowmaker, but in sobriety at the age of 44 as well.
Right.
I was sober
Scary
for
stuff.
Yeah, it was. I was walking to the train. I was trying to get my, my steps in. I did every morning. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking to the train, and I had this awful heartburn. I was like, what is that? And it was different than heartburn. And long story short, I made it home. I thought I was, I didn't know what I thought. I wasn't, my mind wasn't letting me go to what I thought this was, but there's, not to go into the widowmaker story, but my wife woke up, she heard me almost throwing up, and she's an acupuncturist doctor, and she knew what it was. And I think our kids were 6 and 5, and she threw them in the back seat, rushed me to the hospital. Anyway, I'm sorry, we got off a tangent on the widowmaker.
No, that's okay.
It happened. But so you're facing, and then you get 6 months to live. They give you 6 months to live. Yeah. At Betty Ford, this is what they tell you.
Yeah. That's what they told me.
I love what you said too, because, I always say, like, the first year, it is longer than the first year, but the first year, at least for me, I have this in my own mind that, like, I kind of checked out from everything that I was like, and me too. I had some false starts, Flindt. Like, I went to rehab in 2002. My sobriety date is 2006, and I was in and out for 4 years. And in those 4 years, I never put 90 days together, ever.
Right.
And, the saying, a belly full of booze and a mind full of AA is a really tough place to be. And I heard these words, and it was echoed for me when I heard these years into sobriety, that I was engaged in a battle every single day, and I didn't even know it. And that's me. That was me to a T. I was just fighting it every single day, and the fight was getting harder and harder, and I was getting lower and lower. And I don't know what overcame me in 2006. My sobriety date's May 13th, 2006. And nice. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I had way worse bottoms. I've been plenty of trouble. We talked about some of it on your show, but, like, I've been arrested since I was 16. I have a lot of trouble, but this time I just didn't want to do it anymore. And that first year, all I feel like I did is I walked around New York City, which my love affair for New York City to this day is the sobriety in New York City. And it's amazing, everything that it has to offer. Not these days. It's a little different these days, but back then, hence why we're making the move, but that's another story. But, that's all I did, right? There was the old days to give you a pamphlet, here you go. And that's all I had to do. I went to work, went after work, the job I barely held on to, actually, in this entire time, but held on to it. I went to work. I looked in the pamphlet. I went to a meeting or two every single day. And, like, I look back on that time is just such a beautiful thing, and I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is I don't want to drink anymore. Right. No idea that I was finding a higher power, I was finding a new purpose or a new lease on life and everything that comes with it, and I'm glad you said that. It's what's the saying? It's a simple program for complicated people, right? That's me for sure.
It is, and again, it's just show up, right? Yeah. You show up and things are going to happen. I can't tell people when it's going to happen, but I can definitely say it's going to happen if you just show up, because nobody's got a crystal ball. And look, for some people, it might be a year. Some people, it might be 4, sometimes it's longer than that, But, you said something important just a second ago, where you're talking about your heart attack. And I think you said, that's a story for another time. Let me tell you something. That's important stuff right there, because telling all of our story is so important to those that are, especially young people today that are locked into this deal.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize the long-term health risks that are associated with alcoholism and drug addiction.
Mm.
Even if somebody is taking a Suboxone or a methadone, because it's harm reduction.
Right.
They don't understand because nobody's telling them what those potential long-term health risks are. You said you had a heart attack in sobriety. Mm-hmm. I also had, this was 2015. I couldn't walk 10 feet to a door without my legs hurting, and I would have to stop, and nobody could figure out what it was. I go into this one physician, he does an ultrasound, and he says, my God, he goes, you don't hardly have any blood flow going to your legs. We have another aortic valve right in our midsection that was 99% blocked. And I didn't know it. So here we go again. I got to go in. They just finished the scarf, from the neck to, down, and then now all the way down. Yeah. But it was like turning on a faucet when after I was in ICU, I think 4 days. Then I was in the hospital about 10. They got me up and I could walk around the entire floor of the hospital and no pain.
Wow.
It literally was turning on a faucet, Oh
my gosh.
So again, my point with all of that is, and I can say this because I'm getting older, most definitely. Some of those health risks, they kind of come full force here, later on in life. And again, part of the message that we need to get out to people, is that
Sure.
there's more coming your way, more than likely.
It's funny you say, well, not funny you say that, but I'm just thinking right now, when I was in that rehab in 2002, there's a few things that really stand out to me. And one of them was seeing the pictures, what a heart looks like on cocaine after abusing yourself with cocaine. And I will never forget it. And, the sick thing is we still go back out. We see these images, right? And we still go back out. We still do that to ourselves.
Right.
That's what happens when we're sick, right? We're a sick person, and I'm certainly a sick guy, and I was a very sick guy. Sure. But I did, again, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's, he's got his own sort of demons, and one of them is cocaine, and he asked me for help on it, and we talked about it. I was like, if you saw the images, what a heart looks like on someone that tells me it does the cocaine at the types that you're telling me, like, you really want to think about it, right? Now you said we're a little older, right? And now we got families and things like that. And there's a lot more at stake, and, back to me though, my doctor, after it was all said and done, a few months, like my wife wanted answers, like what, I do have a history of heart disease. My grandfather, my uncles, my mom's got 7 brothers. I think everyone, all 10 of them are on Lipitor. Like there's heart disease in the family, right? And the doctor said, listen, I could have seen you yesterday. I could have seen you the day before you had this heart attack and told you can go run a marathon. He said, was it a fluke? Is it, your family history? It's both, it's all the above, but you bring up a good point. I was pedaled to the metal in a bad way for many, many, many years, and man, I'd hate to even think about it, but it's the first time I'm even thinking about it, if that did play a role. But like you said, it comes back. The flip side, though, of what we're saying here also, which is absolutely incredible, what people find too, is they do get sobriety and they change all these other aspects of their life, right? They get healthy. They start exercising. They start working out. Maybe they start going for walks. They start watching what they eat. This gigantic, beautiful umbrella of the transformations that take place with us when we just try to, for me, I just wanted to go stop drinking, let alone, I had no idea that I was going to get a new lease on life. I was going to be born again, begin again. That's where the podcast begin. I got to begin again. I'm sure you got to begin again a few times, it sounds like, right?
Yep. Absolutely. And again, you said something that's just really, my mind is just going a million miles an hour now. I mean,
please, yeah.
I remember, I don't know how I remember this, by the way, but I came out of, this is the surgery in 2000, the first open heart. I remember being kind of wheeled into post-op, and I had an intubation tube down my throat, and I'm totally wrapped up, because you have so many IVs and everything, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my sons at the time, they were, they were like 18 and 13. And as I'm laying there, I could barely have my eyes open. And they walk in, they take one look at me, and it's a look of disgust, and they turn around and they walked out. And it still took me another year.
Yeah.
Even with that. Yeah. And that's what normal people or parents of kids that are using, they don't understand about this disease.
Right.
That it takes over, it controls us, to the point of, it's not that we don't care about our families or our wives or anybody else. It's almost unexplainable.
It is.
Because how do you explain that I'm going to choose a drug over my sons?
You can't, because it doesn't make sense.
Because none of this makes sense.
None of it makes sense. It's the disease of our minds too, for sure.
Right. And that's what, and I don't mean to get off on this little tangent for a second,
I love it.
But this is what I talk about so much when we're dealing, again, I'm in California, when we're talking about lawmakers, when we're talking about the treatment industry, when you have all these lawmakers, you've got doctors that I'm going to include in this mess. They're not asking the right people on what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. Everything is coming out of a book. Most of us addicts, and I don't mean this arrogantly, most of us are fairly intelligent. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows the addict like the addict. And I can honestly say this because I've been before our state legislature. I've been before our public health and safety committee meetings. Mm-hmm. They're not asking us how to fix this thing and to at least put something in place in order to benefit those, to even get them into a treatment center somewhere. Because Gary, we don't have enough beds in this country. Here's a perfect example. The city of San Francisco has a $569 million annual budget for substance use disorder and mental health. They have a grand total of 57 beds to try to service over 25,000 practicing addicts in the city of San Francisco. Where's the money going?
Where is the money going?
That's the question. And nobody can answer it. There's counties around our area. One place for example, 4.2% of their budget goes towards program services. 87%, goes to compensation for the higher ups. I mean, and nobody's questioning it.
Right. That's the problem, right? No one questions it.
That's the problem. That's the problem. And again, I didn't mean to get off on that one, but
that's an important thing too. I'm glad people, and I know we've talked about this and I watch all your content for sure. And, this is a real important topic, what you're talking about right here too, for sure, and, it's the people, like you said, that have no clue what they're talking about. And I love what you said. They're not talking to us. Right. And you said, just like you said, nobody knows an addict like another addict. Right. And it was Brandon Novak. He put something out yesterday describing what we were just talking about before, about how it's how cunning and baffling, and how it makes no sense to the normal person, the mind of an addict or an alcoholic. Right. And I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but it was unbelievable. I put it on my timeline because it was so good. He was saying, someone's got cancer. Oh, all right, rush them to the hospital. They want to, we got to get this fixed. Someone had a heart attack. All right, let's rush to the hospital. Listen, doctor, rush them to the hospital. Let's get them help. Right. You tell an addict you're a drug addict and you have an alcoholic. That person's going to go after the doctor, be like, who the hell are you to tell me that I have that? You don't know what you're talking about. Which meanwhile, it's just as deadly or more deadly. Right. Like, correct. What's the jelly roll that I keep talking to? What it's and this better than anyone that I know for sure. Right. It is a full blown, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's a full blown, full capacity 747 plane crashing every single day in this country. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's pretty close. I think if a 747 holds like a little over 600 people. Uh-oh, hold on a second, Gary.
Yeah, no worries.
This just went kind of nuts here. I can't believe this is happening.
That's like an old episode of the Twilight Zone popped down. Take your time, bud.
There we go. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 660 people are on a 747, and I think it comes out to a plane a week for 40 weeks is what I think is what the number is.
Right.
That crashes. Again, if that happened, or even as small as if we found 6 dead seals on the Santa Cruz beach,
yeah,
we would send out the Third Army and every scientist to try to figure out why 6 seals washed up dead on the Santa Cruz beach. So this that we have going on right now is, and we're basically doing nothing about it. And I really mean that. I own a treatment center as well. So I deal with the state of California. I deal with the insurance companies. I'm dealing with these people. They don't really give a damn about any of it. In fact, most PPO insurances now are reducing the time in a treatment center to 17 to 20 days instead of even 28 days. That's their job. Okay.
That's their job.
Right. And we all know that the longer somebody stays in a treatment facility, the better. Right? It's a time thing.
I was going to say, I don't know anyone that's ever gotten it, quote unquote, gotten it in 17 days. That number is ridiculous. That makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And people, again, have to remember this. And look, I'm pretty hardcore about this, and I just kind of say it like it is. Addicts now and treatment is split into 2 sections. You have those with PPO insurance and have the cash available to pay for a treatment facility. Then you have those that don't. They have Medi-Cal, they have Medicaid. And most private treatment centers do not take Medi-Cal simply because they don't pay enough.
Right.
They don't pay enough to cover the treatment center's food costs for a week, for somebody's entire stay. So the treatment industry is screwed up to begin with. So again, how do we help these people?
Yeah.
It's one person at a time, obviously. That's the best that we can do. I just know that there are solutions out there, but what we're doing right now is we've lost the war on drugs. Okay. Let's just call it what it is. I don't want us to lose the war on recovery. Right now we're losing that battle on recovery because most of society wants to keep the addict down. Now, I don't want to say down. I want to say even. Let's put you on long-term medical assisted treatment here. That now you're addicted to another substance, which is actually more difficult to get off than your original drug. This is for a lifetime. And once again, they are not explaining the downside to that with people. And a small example is this. If somebody wants to be on methadone, methadone is run by the DEA and the federal government. It took me 2 years to get off of it by myself. It comes in a liquid form. I had to take it down 1 milligram a week. I finally walked into the clinic and I said, you can take this and you can shove it up your you-know-what. I said, I'm done with you guys.
Yeah.
It's the most difficult drug to come off of all time. Ask any opiate addict that's been on it. In fact, most treatment centers will not even take a methadone patient until they're down to about 15 milligrams because it's too hard to detox somebody off of methadone. And by the way, if you're going to your clinic in your area to get the methadone, and you decide you want to go to, we'll just use Florida as an example, for the weekend with your family, and you forget your methadone, you can't go into another methadone facility in Florida to get it. Wow. It's impossible. So my point here is you're tied to it. You're strapped to it. You are trapped inside of this system that, and by the way, if somebody forgets their methadone and they've gone on vacation with their family, that vacation's over with.
Forget it. Yeah, forget it.
That person will come back to get it.
Yep.
Because the withdrawal symptoms are that bad.
Unbelievable. You know, I'm hearing you talk, and obviously I follow you, and I know everything that you put out, and you know, this all started, you're telling me, in 2008 when you told your story, and you finished telling your story, and you had a bunch of parents reaching out to you asking for help. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
You ever step back and say, you know, wow, Flindt, look at where you are now. You know, you're one of the leading voices against this.
You know, first of all, Gary, let me say this. I'm extremely fortunate to be alive and to even be here. And like I said, I didn't want this on my resume, but there was a point where all of a sudden I went, okay, you know what? God had a plan, and I'm supposed to be here.
Right. Yeah.
You know, now I will tell this brief little story. This is about 8 years ago. My best friend, I came into the office one day. Nobody was here. I turned on the computers, turned on the lights, and it was 9 a.m. At 9:30, I walked out of my office. I didn't turn off the lights. I didn't turn off the computer. I didn't lock the front door. I drove home, shut everything down. It's now 9:30 in the morning, and I fell asleep till 6. And I called my best friend and told him about it. And he said one thing to me. He said, "You got to remember, buddy," he said, "you can't save everybody." And I said, "Thank you." You know, I've had to learn a little bit here on how to pace myself, especially the older I get now, you know, but very proud of what, because it's never just me. It's never one person. I'm very proud of the organization, the people that have come through here, that have worked here and maybe moved on, new people that are working here. It's guys like you that we've come in contact with over the years. It's a collaborative effort, no matter how you look at it. And I'll tell you what, though, there's nothing better when 9 years, 10 years later, some kid calls and says, "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you."
Yeah.
You know, there's the reward right there. You know,
there's nothing better than that. I'm saying, right? I remember you shared this last time we talked, right?
Yeah. There's just nothing better. We've seen a little over 10,000 families since 2009 that have come through the door. We've sent almost, I think it's right over 5,000 to treatment since that time. Now, again, success rates are extremely hard to measure, you know, because it's not a curable disease.
Right.
And, you know, somebody moves and goes away. So I don't know what those are, but I do know we got plenty of people out there that are living a good, clean, sober life, and the parents. And see, that's the other key part to all of this. Okay. I started a parent support group in 2010, and that parent support group is, look, I'm a big AA guy. I'm a huge 12-step guy. I'm even a huge Al-Anon guy, but Al-Anon's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And here's why. Everybody sits around the circle, right, and tells their story like in an AA meeting, and it moves to the next person, moves to the next person, moves on. You can't crosstalk. You can't give suggestions. You can't give advice, right? Not here, all right? I'm the addict. And so we give advice, we give suggestions. I let these parents know and these families know, this is what you're up against. This is what to expect. This is what not to expect. And I tell every bit of my life stories every week to anybody that shows up here. And we have families that have been coming now for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years that still come because their kids are still out there using, but the parent and the families are doing okay. Okay, because families go through their kid is their addiction.
Right.
The chaos that kid is causing is the parent's addiction. They don't know how to live. Relationships get blown to hell. Siblings get put on the back burner.
Right.
Because us, the addict and the alcoholic, it's all about us all the time.
Yep.
I teach these parents, you've got a life. You've got other kids to take care of. It's not that you don't love your child over here that's using, but if you want some change in your life, this is how you're going to have to do it. And sometimes it gets tough. Okay.
Absolutely. Because you're dealing with parents, right? And
right.
Nothing more.
How do you talk to the parent that lost a kid? Okay. And that's probably one of the hardest, because we have parents out there today that have lost kids that are all about long-term harm reduction. And here's why. But I'm going to preface this by saying, how do you argue with a parent in this? Right. A lot of these parents, they've started organizations and they talk about harm reduction because oh, maybe if we just kept our son or our daughter on Suboxone or methadone, well, at least they'd still be alive.
Right.
Well, maybe not. But what kind of life is that? Again, short-term harm reduction keeps us alive. Long-term harm reduction keeps us trapped. We actually have parents that have lost kids that still come to our meetings to support other parents that are going through this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we're also moving this to LA, because we don't know of any of these meetings in Los Angeles. So that's why we're going to start them down there as well.
Incredible. And how long have you had this going for the parents?
Since 2010.
2010, I think you said that. That's
yes.
incredible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, thinking about you, right? You tell your story, and the parents come and ask you, and must have been very quickly realized, okay, this is out of Flint's hands. There's a higher purpose here, right? There's something else going on here. I mean, look at where we are, 14 years later. And going, and now you're expanding into other communities in California, Los Angeles. Like we both said, there's so many in LA, right? I met so many friends in LA now just from starting this podcast. It's incredible, right? How many people are out there. And so tell us, where are you with the expansion? Where does that stand?
We put a couple of guys on our board of directors here. I don't know if you know Tim Ryan or not.
I do. And actually had lunch with another friend of yours, Dan Cattery.
With Dan Carity, absolutely. We put Dan on the board. We put Tim on the board, and of course with Jason, and Jason knew these guys beforehand, and so we went to them and we said, "Look, man, this is what we'd like to do," and both of them said, "I'm in." They jumped in with both feet. So, but we are taking a little slow. We're now in the process of looking for a spot down in Los Angeles. Like I said earlier, hopefully that we can get this up and running by the 1st of June. That's kind of the goal. But if we can get through if we have to do it in August or September, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Right.
And Tim, I mean, Tim is like me. We're pretty loud. We're pretty brash. We can drop an F-bomb or two, and we can kind of tell it like it is.
There you go.
But I definitely think that's what's needed today. This isn't a rainbow and butterfly addiction here. This is ugly. This is brutal. And of course, fentanyl has just changed the game.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you that when you were talking earlier, when you were in your bad place, in your bad spot, 2001, like imagine that was running as ramp as it is now.
I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I simply wouldn't be here. No.
Yeah.
No, look, and I think people also need to understand this fact. This is how fentanyl has changed the game so much. I could have still been a pill addict for another 30 years. I could have, cocaine users, they can use for quite some time, even heroin. I mean, it's as long as you're smart about it. Okay. Heroin's only going to get so potent, right? But fentanyl's made in a lab. So we can make that crap as strong as we want to. But with fentanyl, you have about a 4 to 6 month window, if you're lucky, before you die. And that's it. And again, they don't know when somebody's buying like an M30 pill. That's the pill that's on the street all over the country today. It's that blue M30 pill.
M30.
Yep. That Google that at some point.
Yeah.
Because China's not the ones that are actually making the pills. China is shipping the properties of fentanyl into Mexico.
Right.
The Mexican cartels are then manufacturing the pills. They do them with what's called a pill press. And so when they're lacing, when they're mixing everything, this isn't scientific stuff
Right.
they're using here. Okay. This is hands with gloves on their hands.
Right.
Right. So when these kids go and they buy an M30 pill, let's say there's 4 kids. So these kids will cut it in quarters.
Okay.
So let's say there's 4 of us here. You're going to get a quarter. I'm going to get a quarter. This guy's going to get a quarter. And this person is. Well, you may get the quarter of the pill that's got all the fentanyl in it. And you're dead in 30 seconds. We may take the other 3/4 of that pill and there's no fentanyl in it.
So it can all be concentrated in one quarter.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Or maybe another time, maybe there was enough in 2/4 of the pill. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's Russian roulette. It's a crapshoot is what it is. And then you've got these organizations that are out there that are saying, oh, well, you just need a fentanyl test strip. Well, somebody tell me one opiate addict, just one, that is going to take a 4-step process when they're jonesing, when they're kicking, and they're going to take a 4-step process to test the pill for the drug that they need to have in their body.
It's impossible.
They're not going to do it.
Not happening.
It's not happening. Okay?
Not happening.
Now, I don't promote this, but I'm okay with this next statement. Because there are people out there that they want to do cocaine on a Saturday night. They would be foolish not to have a fentanyl test strip to test that cocaine to see if there's fentanyl in it. See my point?
I see your point clearly, but it's making me angrier. Yeah,
it does.
You know, right? It's what's the answer? This is what you're talking about all the time. What do we do?
Right. What do we do? And again, that is one of the things that Tim and Dan and Jason and I are really formulating now, because our society needs answers.
Yeah. We
don't need another Band-Aid.
Right.
To put on something here. You think we would have learned from the Purdue OxyContin mess in the past? We didn't learn from that one at all.
Nope.
In fact, we're just repeating ourselves with fentanyl all over again. And again, I'm not even going to get into the border being open, and I'm not even going to get into the great job that that law enforcement is doing, but their hands are so tied,
right?
And the court system are not putting these people in jail, especially in California. So the whole thing's a mess. So again, the solution that we feel is going to work here. Again, it's not an end-all fix because it's not a fixable disease. We have to be able to change the treatment industry in order to keep people for lengths of time that they need. We have to be able to teach them afterwards. It's just not about going to treatment and getting off the drug. It's how to deal with the trauma that maybe you have dealt with and why you used to begin with. As basic as learning how to find a job, learning about yourself. What are you passionate about? On and on and on. It's about life skills that we have to be able to teach these people, because what opiates do more than anything else, Gary, is they cut our maturity level in half. So if I'm dealing with a 20-year-old opiate addict, in essence, I'm dealing with a 10-year-old brain.
It's amazing.
Because opiates wipe out our dopamine receptors. They wipe out our serotonin levels. They wipe out everything in our body that keeps us normal and keeps us. And again, our frontal lobe, the minute we start using something, that frontal lobe stops developing. So if somebody starts using at 16, normally the normal person becomes fully mature. The brain becomes fully mature at the age of 26.
Okay.
That's without drugs and alcohol, though. Every time you use a drug, every time you use alcohol, it reverses itself. It backs up.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're never really getting to that level. The other piece is this. We, for the most part, all of us have done a damn good job of spreading the awareness about the fentanyl crisis. Okay. The billboards, the bus stops, the documentaries, the one that we did, the one that local news does, what all over the country we've done this. I'm sorry, how much more effing money are we going to spend on bus stop signs and signs on the street corner all right, instead of putting that money into programs that are actually going to help people.
Can I ask you a question? Do you feel like we are doing a good job as far as that? And I ask this because, when I grew up in the 80s, right? And I remember when the crack pandemic came and say no to drugs and all that stuff, right? Which I know is getting whatever political, but that was like, that dominated everything at that time. And again, we're talking about, I was like 12 years old, something, so I'm a younger mind, right? But everything was about say no to drugs, and we watched on the news the crack epidemic every single day. And when I see the things when I'm walking down the street in New York City and I see the bus stop signs, I don't laugh to myself, but it's just like this is I call them bullshit. Like I feel like we're not doing enough on this. But then I really do start laughing, because then I feel like, I say, well, where in government is gonna, what leadership do we have that's going to shine a light on this, and then until we see like the celebrities like Jelly Roll put out this amazing speech, which goes viral, right? But that's what we need more of, that, because that's the real message there.
Right.
I don't think we are doing enough.
No, we're not. And by the way, that is one of the reasons why we're going into LA, because you just hit the nail on the head, right? We obviously, and I can just use Sacramento as an example, but the federal government as well. We need that face. We need that person. We need that personality that the lawmakers are going to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. This person, male or female, whoever it is, all right, is going to make enough noise. And we've got a few people in mind, to do this, because that's what it's going to take. I'm surprised, even like at people like Robert De Niro, for example, who lost his grandson to this.
Right.
Okay. You haven't heard a word out of his mouth. Not a word out of De Niro's mouth. Okay. Again, it's not for everybody. I understand that. Sometimes people just want to be left alone and let it go. And I get that. That's why I love this movement of recovering out loud right now. That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's where I'm going to also put some blame. It's getting a tiny bit better, but I've been wrestling with this for the last 14 years. The school systems are not doing enough to allow us in to tell the real story about this. And I think you had my friend Tony Hoffman on your show before too.
I did, yes.
Right.
Amazing.
And yeah, and I mean, I was around before Tony got. I love Tony.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tony's doing his thing, but even him and I have talked, and even he said, okay, that schools have come to him and say, can you tone it down just a little bit? And we're going, no. Okay. Right. What do you mean tone it down? All right. We need to tone it up. If anything here. I think some of the schools are getting a little bit better, but they still don't get it. Look, most of these kids are in school more than they're at home.
Right.
Right. That's where they're spending most of their time.
Mm-hmm.
And if a school's going to let us in to do this, it just can't be once a year. This now has to be in front of everybody. And I'm not saying once a week. Okay. But you have the speakers come in 2 or 3 times a semester. And it's also talking to the parents about this.
Yeah, there you go.
That's almost even more important than it is talking to the kids.
You're saying this and it's scaring me too at the same time, if I'm being honest, right? Because you were talking about getting the message into the schools, and, it's one thing to have, a speaker come in like a Tony Hoffman, right? Or I'm drawing a blank, the Celtics guy who I love, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Aaron,
right? I mean, that's awesome. They're amazing people, right?
Right.
But it's the schools. They're doing the token. All right, let's bring them in. Like you said, once a year, we'll do this. We'll put it on tape and look at our school. It's got to be drilled in. You told us before, you got 4 to 6 months if you're going to be playing with this stuff. 4 to 6 months.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with.
I tell people, I don't say this stuff to hear myself talk. I mean, hell, if I could just go spend my time on a golf course for that matter. All right. And I'm going to be a happy guy. But and the other thing is this, and I'm going to give a little credit here to a local school district, Clovis Unified, which is right around the corner from us here. You know, we find that we worked with them and we got Narcan in every classroom in that school district. And it's one of the largest school districts in the state of California.
Wow.
But there's still districts out there that go, no, they're basically afraid of teachers don't want something else added to their list of to-dos. What if we give it? They don't understand that there's a Good Samaritan law out there. You know, school districts are mostly afraid about being sued by parents.
Right.
That's number one. So if they give somebody Narcan and then some lawyer gets a hold of it and says, no, you gave too much or what, it's that kind of crap.
Sure.
Right. That we're up against.
Right. Understandable. You know, and you get that, right? Because they can't get sued. No, I get it. That's another problem. That's all another topic and issue. Right.
It's just, I'm sorry, it's just BS.
No, it's a gigantic, you know, circle of bullshit nonstop everywhere you turn.
Well, you know, it was interesting. I think he was a congressman from here that I don't know. He presented some bill to the state legislature about so ridiculous. He wants to be able to train every student on how to use Narcan, and I'm thinking, no, man. Okay, first of all, did you just write this to look good? Because it's never going to happen.
Right.
There's not a district in America that is going to train every one of their students on how to use Narcan. That is pie in the sky thinking. Right. But what we can work on, and this is what we're going to do in Los Angeles, we want to make sure that every school to start has it, number one.
Right.
And then every classroom has it. And let me just, if you don't mind, let me just explain why.
Oh, no, please.
And you've got two kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you got son and a daughter?
Son and a daughter, 10 and 9.
Okay. So I'm just going to use them as an example.
Sure.
Your son is on the north end of the campus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the school that he's going to has decided that they are not going to have Narcan except for the nurse's office.
Right.
Right. Now, that Narcan, at least here it is in California, that Narcan is in a locked box in the nurse's office. Let's even say the nurse is in her office. Okay. And your son, God forbid, goes into an opioid overdose, but he's at the other end of the campus. Right. She's got to get the key. She's got to unlock the box. She's got to get a golf cart from one of the maintenance guys,
right,
to come and to somehow get and some of these schools, you know, are big, right?
Absolutely. Campuses.
Right. Now she or he has got to drive to the other end of the campus. That's going to take probably 7 to 8 minutes. And at that point, you've probably lost your child, because with Narcan, it takes seconds and minutes to get to somebody. That's it. That's it. So what does it hurt to have it in every classroom? It doesn't. It's there. It's available. It's a life-saving tool. But here's the other thing, Gary. People think that just because you have Narcan, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
Narcan is a life-saving tool, period. It's not a treatment tool.
Right.
What does Narcan do to the opiate addict? It wipes out all the opiate in your system. So when somebody gets Narcan and then they get taken to the hospital, now they're automatically in withdrawal symptoms and they're going nuts.
Right.
And the hospitals have nowhere. They do nothing to tell that patient where to go afterwards. So where do they usually go? Back to the dealer to get more.
Right.
We're in a nightmare.
Did you ever think that you were going to be the voice of all this?
No.
Right. You must, no, you know, and we chuckled. Yeah. I'd rather be playing golf. Yeah, I know, but there's a higher purpose for you. Right. So you'll get your rounds of golf in, right? But man, I'm just hearing your whole story. Right. And I know how passionate you are, and I admire you so much, man. But I'm just, while you're speaking, I'm like, I'm smiling to myself, because you know what, God did put you in that seat. You know that.
I think so. You know, and because for so many years, you know, I had this ailment as a kid, and we have a hospital here in Fresno called Valley Children's Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the top 5 hospitals in the country. if not the world, for children. And it all started on the street corner in Fresno at Millbrook and Shields Avenues. And Valley Children's opened up in 1953. And because of the ailment I was born with, my parents moved 2 blocks away from the hospital. And so I had a surgery a year from the time I was born to the time I was 13. Then I had 4 more in 1976. I think I've lost count. I think I've had 22 since then. So it's still kind of an ongoing issue. But for so long, of course, I blamed God. I blamed my parents. I blamed everybody. Oh, poor me, blah, blah, blah. But to me, that was real in those days, But then again, so I hit it. I masked it. I took the drugs. My opioid receptors changed. But then here came sobriety. Okay. Here it comes. And it just kind of creeps up on you and kicks you in the ass and says, no. You need to stop blaming everybody here. Okay. This had nothing to do with anybody. Okay. You were one of the few, right? You're one of the few. And so I'm just not going to argue with it anymore. I'm too old to argue with stuff.
I love that. We can go on that. I can go on a tangent about that stuff, about the things I learned about myself and how to handle adversity and do things in sobriety, right? It was, if you only knew what happened to me, if you only knew what I saw, it's just, talk about self-centered.
Oh God, yes.
I was the only non-self-centered, guy in the ego problem in the A meeting. And I'm being honest, I really thought that. And I was like, holy shit, I got a lot to learn about myself, but we're here, right? We're here. We get to talk.
We're here, man.
And Flindt, man, we got to do this again. We got to keep us up with the expansion because, like I said, we're going to support you any way we can, and we got to keep the message going. And no one tells it better than you, man.
Well, Gary, thank you so much, man. I do. I appreciate you. When Jason said I was coming on, I said, hell yeah. Okay. I thought that was great. And if you get to Florida and you ever need us to come out and speak or do any of that stuff, man, I will do it on my dime, brother. Okay.
We're going to do that for sure. We're going to do that. In fact, I just reminded me, I think we're going to do this again in about a month or so with the both of you. So,
that's right. Yeah, we are.
The 3 of us are going to do this again, which is going to be awesome. And
that's going to be awesome.
We're going to do this again because we got to keep hearing your message. You're an incredible man. I am so honored that I'm sitting across from you right now. And I'm honored to think, or humbled to think I'm in this fight with you, brother, because I think the world of you.
Gary, thank you so much. I think the same of you, my friend. I really do.
You're the best. Really right do. Back at you. And we'll do this again, my friend.
Take care, man.
You will.
Thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of the Begin Again podcast. We sincerely appreciate your time and support. We hope that today's conversation has ignited a spark within you, affirming that recovery is not only attainable, but can also be a wellspring of strength and resilience. Our ultimate goal is to make a difference in someone's life every single day. By sharing these stories of redemption, we strive to empower you and inspire you to unlock your fullest potential, facilitate positive transformations, and contribute to creating a better future for yourself, for your loved ones, and the world at large. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to our show, please share it with them. And if you resonate with our mission and feel compelled to do so, we would greatly appreciate your support through a 5-star review, following us on Instagram, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, The Begin Again Podcast. The more positive reviews we receive and the wider our message spreads, the greater our collective ability to help others realize that change is possible in their own lives. Thank you once again for being part of our community. May you be blessed on your own journey of personal growth and transformation.